So here I am again, adding another Spider-Man video to the list. Today I'm talking about Marvel's Spider-Man 2, and we'll be going over suits that I personally would like to see in the game for both Miles and Peter's Spider-Man respectively. When coming up with this list, I thought of the most interesting looks that I favored, as well as suits that I don't think anyone has ever really talked about. So without further ado, let's get into the suit wish list, starting with Peter's suits.
I am the stone that the builder refused. I am the visual, the inspiration that made ladies sing the blues. I'm the spark that makes you hot.
When making this list, the first suit that came to mind was the original symbiote suit, but not the one we see in Secret Wars. I mean the original concept design for the suit created by Marvel fan Randy Schueller. The idea was for Spider-Man to have a stealth version of his costume, which would be made out of unstable molecules and be created by Reed Richards. After sending the idea to Marvel, they bought the idea, and Schueller actually wrote a draft of the story with a Marvel editor on how Spider-Man got this suit. But things fell apart, although he did still get paid for the idea. Eventually, Amazing Spider-Man 252 came out, and well, I'm sure we know where the story goes on from there. This suit would eventually return in Sensational Spider-Man Self-Improvement, with its original origin being made by Reed Richards out of unstable molecules, but I really hope to see it as an alternate suit in the game. A lot of people want to see the original comic version, and yeah, obviously that design is great, but if we're possibly getting alternate symbiote Spider-Man suits, or will possibly be able to edit the symbiote suit in some kind of creator mode, I just think it'd be a crime not to have this version or some version of this suit as an option. Also, and maybe it's just me and my love of the color red, but I honestly think they should have kept the red spider symbol. This suit belongs to Joseph Wade, who was a former FBI agent turned Scarlet Spider back in the fall of 1995. While investigating the new Dr. Octopus Carolyn Trainer, Joe is captured and forced to undergo virtual reality experiments within a machine. But when the real Scarlet Spider Ben Reilly attacks the lair, he damages the machine while Joe is inside, causing it to malfunction, locking Wade inside and turning him into a cybernetic Scarlet Spider. Try saying that 5 times fast. Some abilities that Joe has to separate him from other spiders is the ability to shoot lasers from his eyes, talons, and also illusion creation, all of which would be pretty useful and interesting suit mods in the game. Spider-Man Life Story is a great book written by Chip Zdarsky, and is a story that goes over Spider-Man's adventures from the beginning of his career to the end, and tells the story as if the character had been aging throughout the storylines in real time, instead of him being stuck as a mid-20 something like he is in the main 616 continuity. There are a lot of suits in that story, but the one that stands out to me is a black and red suit he wears in the early 2000s. I just like it when they give Peter a suit that strays away from the traditional red and blue. Speaking of red and blue, There's a Age of Apocalypse variant cover of a Horseman of the Apocalypse Spider-Man, and the design is just amazing, pun intended. I remember when I first saw this image, and it stayed as my wallpaper on my phone for like almost 2 years. I couldn't get enough of it, and I still can't. I would love to see them recreate this suit using all the different textures to bring it to life. Now, I don't know what story this suit is from. I don't know what reality this Spider-Man is from, but I love it, and I would like to see it in the game. The Beyond suit is a more recent addition to the few suits that Ben Reilly's had over the years. At first, I hated the spider on the suit, but the more I saw of it, the more it started to grow on me, and now it's one of my favorite Spider-Man suits in recent time. Now, my favorite clone of Spider-Man is Kane, but my second favorite clone is Webman. Webman is a extra-dimensional mirror clone of Spider-Man, complete with an alternate color scheme, and was created by Dr. Doom with one purpose and one purpose only. Now, very little is known about this character as he was only introduced in one story back in August of 1977, but quickly became one of my favorite lesser-known Spider-Man villains. The story is just kind of out there, and the ending isn't really an ending at all. It leaves a lot of things unsolved. There's a lot of things left in the air, but the bottom line is, Spider-Man ran into Dr. Doom, who had just randomly been trying to make a clone out of him. I don't know. It's just something about the reverse colors that makes it so cool. I honestly think they should bring Webman back and have him be like a reverse Flash type character to one of the Spider-Man or Spider-Women in 616. I'm not sure if a story like that could work. It probably could depending on the writer. But I just really love this suit and I hope to see it in the sequel. The last two suits on my list, even though they're the last, are my favorite suits of Peter Parker that I've ever seen, which is the Spider-Man Unlimited suit and the Earth 10182 Spider-Man suit. This is me editing the video afterwards, but I'd also like to see the Spider-Man Fake Red suit from the manga Spider-Man Fake Red. This suit could be an alternate suit for either Peter or Miles, as the main character in that story isn't either of them. But since we're on the topic and spoilers for the story, Peter does eventually show up in this series as Venom, and I'd also like to see that suit as well. Now, here are a few honorable mentions on the Peter Parker side of things when it comes to alternate suits. Bullet Point Spider-Man, Phoenix Spider-Man, Superior Octopus, Flash Thompson Spider-Man, and Assassin Spider-Man. The advanced suit from 2018 Spectacular Spider-Man. I'd also like to see suits from Marvel's Future Revolution game for both Miles and Peter. There are a lot of interesting suit designs in that game that you can choose from. Also, regardless of how you feel about Square Enix's Marvel's Avengers, you have to admit that their iconic suit is, well, it's iconic in its own way. I love the symbol and I wouldn't mind swinging around Insomniac's New York with this suit. As for Miles, the first suit that came to mind was his recent suit. It's not my favorite in terms of Miles suits, but at the same time, I don't completely hate it. I don't know. It depends on how it's drawn and the angles of the character, like how Miles is positioned and who draws it. But there's no doubt in my mind that this suit will be in the game, as well as the Across the Spider-Verse suit. But those aren't on my wish list. Those are like more or less guaranteed to be in the game. Miles doesn't have nearly as many suits as Peter does. Well, obviously because his character hasn't been around for as long as Peter has. So most of these suits will be from variant colors, like my first one, which is the Nullified Miles cover from Miles Morales Spider-Man 21. I actually think that if you take the swirl off of the head and take away the spiked shoulders, this could easily just be a suit that he wears regularly in the comics. The Shadow Spider suit came out of a Champion storyline known as Weird War 1, where I believe the champions go to Weird World. I haven't read the story, but the suit looks amazing, and also cape physics. I like cape physics, and I'd like to see them in this game. There's an evil version of Miles that wears a red suit with blue webbing who appeared in Spider-Verse back in 2019. This is a very unique design for Miles, and I think it will look absolutely beautiful being translated in the game. I made a couple videos on Marvel Spider-Man, an animated show that aired on Disney XD not too long ago. But in that, when Miles gets infected by a symbiote, I think it's one of the most simple yet interesting symbiotic Miles designs we've ever gotten, and I think it would translate well in this game, even if they use it as an animated suit. There's a concept online of test suits that I believe were going to be in the game originally, but as I can assume for obvious reasons they took them out, or they were just like concepts, I guess. One of these suits is a Miles suit that looks similar to the advanced suit. I guess if they really wanted to, they could add this concept to the sequel and maybe touch it up a bit if they wanted, but this is still a cool design. Speaking of concepts, there's a concept of Miles using his Venom Blast while he's wearing a black and blue suit. I don't know whether this suit was just colored this way for reference to make the Venom effect pop, but if it wasn't, I wouldn't mind, again, like the unused test suits, if they took this concept and put it in the final version of the game, just touch it up a bit. The final suits on my wish list are Captain America Miles Morales variant and the Captain Universe Miles. And I know that Peter also got powers of the Enigma Force, but Miles' black suit just blends better with the cosmic pattern of this suit. But like I said before, I'm pretty sure half of Miles' suits in the game will be from variant covers, with the other half being originals that the game developers created themselves. Although there is one suit that I'd like them to tackle, and that's the Dark Ages version of Miles, which is Miles who has both the Venom and Carnage symbiotes attached to him. But those are all the suits that I'd like to see in Insomniac Spider-Man 2. I don't think there's any doubt that half of Miles' suits, just like in the previous game, will be based off variant covers. Again, just because the character hasn't had many costume changes at the time of this recording. But what suits would you like to see in the game? Are there any suits on my list that you agree with or never even heard of? Are there any suits that you think I might have missed? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you when I see you.